it's time to mow that lawn again. And I bet if you're like me, your lawnmower looks a lot like this right now. I'm really not sure what I'm brave enough to do and what maybe I should leave to the professionals. So, I know there's oil changing and stuff like that, so could you sort of get me started on?
Absolutely. First thing you want to do when you're considering the oil change is check the oil, make sure that there's plenty in it. On this particular unit, unscrew the dipstick, and just like most automobiles, we wipe the oil off and then we screw the stick back in and bring it back out one more time to check the level. All right, we're satisfied that this engine has enough oil so it's safe to run it. So check your fuel, make sure you have a little gas, go through your regular starting procedure. Even though the mower's not been serviced yet, oil will drain more completely and carry out more contaminants if it's warm. So you're going to need to defeat the safety system on most of these machines, tie it up or clamp it some kind of way so the mower can run for 5 minutes or so and just walk away and leave it. When you come back, shut the mower off. One of the first things I like to do when working on any mower is remove the spark plug wire to make sure that there's no danger of the machine starting while you're working on it. Take the wire off, tuck it up under the cover or something, wherever you got to, just to keep it away from the end of the spark plug so there's no danger of it starting. Well, our oil is warm. We're ready to drain it. Different mowers require different things. This particular unit is typical in that the dipstick for the oil is on the opposite side of the engine from the air filter and the carburetor, and that's important. I'll explain in a moment. Easily enough to change the oil on this one. Take an old sacrificial pan of some type. Just simply roll the mower over on its side. Let the warm oil drain out into the pan of your choosing, and just leave it laying there for a couple of minutes. That's why it's important to know where the carburetor and the air filter are. If I were to turn this mower over the other way, some of that oil is going to get over here into the carburetor and air filter area and soak the air filter and ruin it. The majority of mowers now have a paper type air cleaner element. It can't get wet with any kind of fluid. If it does, you have to replace it. Of course, right now we're going to replace this one anyway, so it doesn't matter, but you still need to know the correct way to turn it over.
I always sort of look at mine and think, well, it starts and everything, so why am I changing the oil to begin with?
These are air-cooled engines, unlike your car, which has a radiator and water or fluid to transfer the heat away from the running engine. These rely on a flow of cooling air. The engine has a fan on top that pulls air in, blows it across these. Because they run a lot hotter than, say, an automobile engine, they will break down the oil more quickly. A 25-hour interval, most people will use a walk-behind mower like this about 25 hours a year. So once a year service as far as oil change and possibly air filter service is generally good enough to keep the mower in good working order. But oil changes are critical. Also, engines will use a little oil. Even an engine in very good condition will consume some oil, so you need to check it frequently, keep it up to the full mark on the dipstick, or if it just has a cap, up to the level that they recommend. But you've got to change it. You can't just let the oil stay in there forever. It builds up acids in it and compounds that will corrode internal engine parts over time. So
it's really protecting your investment.
It's protecting your investment, absolutely.
And I guess now we need to fill it back up?
Well, we do, but while we've got the mower on its side and we're going to just let this thing drain and keep dripping for a minute, we're going to go ahead and take care of a couple other things. A lot of people may not tackle sharpening their own blade. But it is something that needs to be done. A quick way to tell whether or not your blade needs to be sharpened is look at the grass you have cut. If it appears to be cut cleanly, just like you'd cut something with a knife or a scissors, you've got a good sharp blade. If it's ragged at the top of the blade of grass and tearing at it, then that's what you're doing. You're just beating the grass to death. You're not cutting it, so you need to have a sharp blade. That's something that for some people will need to be done more than once a season, but certainly at least once at the beginning of every season. Spring grass is pretty tender, so if you don't have a sharp blade, you're just going to be tearing and ripping at it, and that will make your yard look bad over time. But if we move on to the blade here, always wear some good gloves. And again, different manufacturers have different techniques. This particular mower uses one single center bolt to retain the blade, has a separate piece here, which is a stiffener to give some additional strength to the blade. A blade will actually sort of fly like an airplane wing as it's moving around in its circle under here, so stiff is always better. It will give you a better quality of cut, keep the blade from deflecting out, possibly hitting the housing somewhere. So you want to wear a glove. If you have a blade that even feels a little remotely sharp, won't hurt to hold a rag on it as well. You don't want to cut yourself. You're pulling against the sharp edge to remove it. This bolt comes off as standard fashion. Everybody wants to say left to loose, right to tight. Well, that works here, but there are some exceptions to that rule, and that's where the owner's manuals come in handy. Once you've removed the bolt, the blade can be sharpened any number of ways. If it's not too bad, you can actually take this thing, lay it up on the edge of your workbench, and take a flat file and run the file edge into the blade to sharpen it. If you have any nicks or anything, you might just want to make one or two light passes across the bottom to smooth those. But these blades actually are like a knife, have a hollow ground appearance to the edge when they're sharpened properly.
Okay, so so the blade thing, that doesn't seem too intimidating at all. But now while I'm here, I'm noticing there's just all that gunk from that very last time, ran out of steam, didn't clean up underneath.
All right, well, if you've let it sit over winter and get hard, a little mud and a little grass and a little water once dry is adobe. So expect that kind of hassle to get it off. Take a regular putty knife, scraping tool. You can even use a screwdriver or what have you if you don't have one. You don't have to get these things spotless. You're going to find underneath steel deck mowers, you'll have some rusty places. That's not really an issue either. But you want to get the bigger chunks off of this. The main reason it'll affect cutting performance. There was a lot of science that went into the design of this deck to create the standing up of grass for a clean cut. And every time you get a lump of vegetation stuck up under there, you're disturbing that airflow. And it may not seem like a big deal, but it will affect the quality of cut. So keeping one clean underneath is not a bad idea. Leaf mulching in the fall is an especially nasty job. So we have folks sometimes that call us right at the end of the season and want to get it serviced for next year. And one of the questions I ask them is, do you have any leaves you're going to chop up? If you are, you need to go ahead and do that before you have it serviced for the next year, or you're just going to be doing it again right away.
Well, that's the last thing I did actually, was to mulch up a bunch of leaves. So
you probably have a nice dirty little lawnmower at home waiting for your attention.
I think we do. So where is that air filter? Are we ready to get to that?
Ready to get to that. While we're up on the side, easy to get to. Again, different methods of attachment for different machines. The Briggs & Stratton engine we looked at earlier has a flat cover with a screw that can be accessed with a screwdriver. This unit just twists, pulls off. If you get a filter that's lightly dirty, you can take it and tap it on the ground and knock the loose debris out of it. But again, the paper elements, if they get wet, if you see like this filter that has grass packed way down in the flutes of the paper, filters are cheap, engines are not.
All right, I guess we're on to the spark plug, which I have no idea what to do with it.
Well, spark plugs are simple. You either just put a new one in or not. What to look for with a spark plug. If you've been running a machine with a dirty air filter, spark plug will be very black and sooty. Also the electrodes, and I know this may be hard on camera, but tiny little area here where we have a gap between the ground and center electrodes of that spark plug, that electrode will actually begin to round off over time with just wear from having so many electrical sparks go across it. Spark plugs, again, is a thing that's really cheap. A good fresh spark plug will make your mower start easier and run better, and for the $3 or so that they cost, it's just a good idea to put one in whenever you do your spring service.
Well, now you have all the basics, and you're much better prepared to decide if you want to do some of this work yourself or take it to a professional. So have a wonderful lawn mowing summer with your clean lawnmower this year.